Hello and welcome back to Art Masters with me, Mrs. Portilla. Today we'll be working with a French Impressionist artist named Joseph Raphael, and he actually lived in California in San Francisco. He liked to use watercolor and oil paint. That was the medium he liked to use in an artist. And today we will be doing a realistic watercolor. So he actually liked to do some watercolors that looked very, very real. It's called hyperrealism. His paintings almost looked like a photograph. So you could see the way he did that was he used very intense colors, which means very bright colors, and he used very white for his contrast. So those are some things we're going to be doing today with our realistic watercolor. Today we are going to be doing a realistic watercolor fish. We'll be using some nice, bright, intense colors and our watercolor pencils, and we're going to remember to leave some white space for contrast. So go ahead and grab your supplies and we'll get started. Now that you have your supplies, we're going to move our green paper and move our water cup and our watercolor pencils. And we're going to get a light colored pencil, like yellow or light blue or orange. This is what we're going to use to sketch our fish. So once you have your light colored pencil, we're going to move our water out of the way. We're going to grab our paper plate. So remember, this is going to be our template for today. So we're going to trace over our template. So grab your plate and set it in the middle of your paper. Sometimes I like to have it a little off center from the middle, so I might move it down or up away from the center. So we're going to set it on your paper. This is going to be the body of the fish. And once you find a place you like, go ahead and grab your light watercolor pencil. I'm using orange today. And we're going to trace around our template. So I'm holding my pencil loosely, and I'm going to lightly draw around my template with my watercolor pencil. Oh, I guess I had two plates there. So now we have our circle. So now you guys go ahead and pause and get your light colored pencil and your circle and go ahead and draw your fish. So we're going to be doing some of our details for our fish, like adding a mouth and a tail and some fins. And remember, Joseph Raphael actually used free-form shapes, so not just a triangle, not just a square. It was more of a wavy triangle. So first we're going to do his mouth, and diagonally across we're going to do his tail. So I'm lightly sketching his mouth, which is going to look like an elongated W. You guys know what a W looks like, don't you? So here's my elongated W, or maybe a sideways M or two mountains, whatever you think. But you can see how I've curved the tops of my two triangles for his mouth. So his tail is going to be diagonally across on the other side. I'm going to use my pencil to show you where I'm going to put the tail. Again, I'm going to lightly sketch the tail with my watercolor pencil. And I'm just going to hold my finger where I'm going to put it. So I'm going to start with a curved line for his tail. So it's a free-form shape, a nice curved line for his tail. And now here you could either do a straight across tail, or maybe a wavy line for a tail, or a jagged tail. So first I'm going to put my other curve for his tail. And now I'm going to connect it with either a straight, jagged, or wavy line. So lightly sketching my wavy line for a free-form shape for my fish. Now I'm going to add the fins. So the fish has two fins. We're going to do one on the top and one on the bottom. Again, I'm going to do it diagonal. So you have the mouth and the tail diagonal and the two fins diagonally from each other. So I'm going to do a light curve, kind of a rounded triangle. So curve on the top, curve on the bottom, or it could be a pointy triangle depending on your fish. Or it could be a wavy triangle. So I'm doing the wavy triangle for a fin. So go ahead and use your watercolor pencil, draw your elongated W, draw your tail that's diagonally from your mouth, and your two fins. So once you have your fins and your tail and your mouth drawn, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be adding some more fish detail. So here's a picture of some of our fish. Some have long stripes that are jagged or straight. We have our little fin in the middle of the body. We also have a gill, which is a curved C. And some fish have dots and round circle eyes. So we're going to be adding some details that we want, and everyone's fish can be different. So go ahead and grab your same light colored pencil. If you'd like, you could use a different light colored watercolored pencil, but I'm going to stick with my orange pencil for now. So the first thing we're going to draw is the eye. So you see that each fish's eye is a circle with another circle in it, and the eye is near the fish's mouth. So I'm going to lightly sketch a small circle with a smaller circle inside. Again, you could use a different color if you want. So now I'm going to grab my light blue, and I'm actually going to go over my orange line. Now we're still just doing the outlines. We're not coloring in yet. So now I'm going to add some more details. I'm going to grab my yellow pencil, and I'm going to do a gill, which is like a curved C. So go ahead and watch me first, and then you can add some of your details. Now I want to do some stripes. I'm going to keep with my yellow pencil, and I'm going to go up and down lightly with some pointed stripes. These could be straight, pointed. So I'm doing some curved triangle stripes with my yellow pencil. Now I'm going to add some fin lines. So now go ahead and grab your pencils, and you're going to lightly sketch with different colored watercolor pencils, and you're going to add your details. We're not going to color in, we're just going to do the outline of our details. And I will leave a picture of the fish on the next slide. So now that you have your details drawn, just the lines, we're going to start coloring in with our watercolor pencil. But we're not going to color in the entire area. We're going to leave white space. So very important, we're just going to color along the edges. So we're going to lightly press, and we're going to color along the edges with our watercolor pencil. Light lines will end up disappearing once we put water over it, and the dark lines will show up a lot more brightly. So go ahead and watch me. I'm going to take my yellow pencil, and I'm going to color lightly just on the border. I'm not going to fill it in. So I'm coloring lightly on the edges. And I could push a little bit darker and I'll get more intense of a color. But if you see, I left the white space in the middle. I just colored along the edges. And when I put the water over it, it's going to spread that color. So now I'm going to take a different color, and I'm going to do my orange around the edge of my fin, leaving white space in the middle. I can push harder. I could use little circles, which is a nice technique to fill in around the edge. And I'm going to leave the white space. So I'm going to start coloring in. I'm going to add it a little bit darker, but I'm leaving that white space. So we're just going to color along the edge. Then if you'd like, you can watch me fast forward it as I color in, leaving the white in the middle of my fish. So now you should have your edges filled in, and we should have our white space. So I actually went over some of my lines with a darker color, like red, and I added a darker, more intense color along the edges. So this is just going to add some brighter colors when I add the water. So you can go through and define some of your edges or add some brighter, darker colors. And then you want to go over some of your outline of the fish. So you want to make sure that outline is standing out very brightly. So go ahead and take a dark color. For me, I'm using red. Maybe you want to use green or dark blue. And you're just going to go around the outline of your fish, pushing hard and getting a nice dark outline. So when we paint over it with water, that dark outline will stay and the softer lines will disappear. Next, we're going to draw some bubbles. So the bubbles, like Joseph Raphael liked to use, are just going to be small circles and some big circles. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just fill in around the edge with my blue. I'm also going to go over the outline with a darker blue or purple, so it'll be more defined once I put the water over it. So you want to make sure you go over your outlines with a darker color and add some bubbles. And then that way the dark outline around your image is going to show nice and bright once we add the water. So once you have your outlines done, we're going to grab our green or whatever the color paper was that we had from the beginning, and we're going to glue our image onto the paper. So grab your glue stick or regular glue, and we're going to glue this onto our nice paper before we add the water. Otherwise, you have to let the painting fully dry, and then you can glue it. So go ahead and center it, press down. So now it's stuck on your nice paper, and this is a great time to put your name on your paper so you don't forget before it gets wet. Once you have your paper glued down and you have your name on it, we're going to get our water and our brush. We do not need to use a lot of water. We're going to start with a very little amount of water. So grab your brush. So dip and dab onto the paper towel just so we don't have a lot of water on our brush. We want to start with a little bit of water. I'm going to use the side of my brush and lightly go over my orange. And as you can see, it's spreading my color. And then I'm going to dip and dab to get that color off and to get my brush wet again. And now I'm going to go over the yellow. Try not to mix the colors. Try to do the yellow, dip and dab, orange, dip and dab, so you don't mix up the colors. So I'm just going over my pencil, dip and dab, and then I'm spreading my watercolor, going over my edges, my lines, and making the nice colors. Then I'm going to start pulling the color into the middle of my drawing. Dip and dab, and I'm going to start pulling my color into the middle. I'm still leaving a lot of white space, but you can see I'm starting to spread the color. So go ahead and take your brush and start dipping and dabbing, going around the edges. Try to do one color at a time and see what you get. So after you do your painting and go over your drawing with water, if you feel like you need to, you could go over very lightly with a little bit darker color to define any of the outlines. Just remember your paper is wet, so you don't want to tear through it. So be very gentle. And if you're happy with your painting, then great job. I hope you left some white space and you have some great colors and you really like your picture of your realistic watercolor fish. All right, great job, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. If you have a chance to look at each other's work in class, some things to point out are the contrast and intensity, how bright is the color, and look for the contrasting white spots in everyone's art, and just how cool and great everyone's shapes and ideas are. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I will see you next time on Art Masters.